Hello knitters and friends, welcome to the Seedling Stitch Knitting Podcast. I'm your host Athena. I am a knitwear designer and I also work at our local yarn store called West Coast Wools here in Vancouver, Canada on Fridays and weekends. This is my knitting channel where I chat all my knitting projects and crafting, sewing, crocheting related projects. In case you don't know, if you're new here, I'm not Canadian, I'm from China, so you may hear me talking a lot about Chinese yarn or books, and I also dabbled in Japanese patterns quite frequently, so you may hear me sharing some of my Japanese patterns related crafting as well. So hopefully I will be able to bring you like East Asian perspective of knitting to you on top of the regular knitting contents that you may see here on YouTube. Also, because English is not my native language, so you may hear me commit to random grammar errors. Hopefully that was funny to you, or just ignore them. And I probably don't speak very fast, so feel free to speed up the video as you like. My videos can get quite long because I have a lot of projects and awesome Japanese pattern books to share with you today. So without further ado, thank you for knitting with me, staying with me, and feel free to bring your knitting projects or whatever other projects here to here, and we'll get started with today's episode. So let me start by what I'm wearing. I am wearing my Provence top. The pattern is designed by Ekaterina Vorobeva. It's a pattern available on Ravelry from, I think, a couple years ago. It gets quite popular every summer, and I really loved it. It is the original pattern is knitted in a DK summer yarn, but the yarn I have is a it's a China hemp yarn, and it's like a sports weight, so I had to modify my gauge, and I think I ended up knitting a larger size in a smaller needle, and it was okay for me. I talk a bit more about how I did all the modifications in my earlier episodes in episode 8 and 9, so if you're interested, feel free to hop back to my older episodes. I did this one in last summer, so yeah, I loved it and I'm still happy to wear it today. So that's what I'm wearing, and let me get started right with my finished objects. And the first one I've already showed off in the beginning of this episode and on my Instagram, all my social media platforms, because I'm very proud of this. It is a straw hat like this, and there's no pattern to this. I kind of restyled it. There's a few pattern books that I referred to, but I didn't really crochet according to any specific patterns, and I'm happy to share with you how to crochet a straw hat that's fit to your hat perfectly, and how to style the whole thing according to your aesthetics. So I'll just show off my finished objects first. It is I don't know what's the style of the hat. It's just like a flat top and a slightly slanted body, and then brim, is that the word? And I've made these little handles so that I can insert a ribbon into it. And the ribbon has many functions. So first, it can be just like this. It's a decoration. I tie it in a bow, and it's really nice, really pretty, really stylish, really chic. And it's also functional. So if I untie it, and you can see in this row where I inserted the ribbon, I also did like a crochet lace kind of thing, so that I can insert my ribbon through this the hole of the lace like that to thread it to the inside of the hat. I'll do that for the other ribbon. And then I can wear the hat, and this will fall just behind my ears. I'll just tie it behind my ears like this, under my chin, so it will look like this. So it adds an extra security to the hat. So recently I started biking in the city in Vancouver. It's really easy to bike, and I do the bear sharing thing, so it's really cost friendly and it's very good for the health. And sometimes it gets quite sunny, and I enjoy having this hat to bring me a little bit of shadow. But if I'm riding a bike, there might be the wind, and I'm worried that the hat will fly away. But with this bow tie, it secures it, so even it flies, it won't be gone, because this is quite a precious item, handmade item for me. So that's an extra function. And if I happen to have the hat, but the day is cloudy and I don't need the hat, I can just tie the hat like on my neck like this. There's some dog. So yeah, so that's the functions of these ribbons. So it's not purely decorative. And as for the yarn that I'm using, I don't know if I've said in previous episodes, maybe in my 2023 plan video, it is a Chinese yarn again, and it is like a paper yarn. I used all the 2 balls, so that's 100 grams of, it's like a washi paper yarn. It's like a wood, and then they bring the wood down to pulps and regenerate that into a very paper-like yarn. So when you feel it, it looks quite like paper, but I don't have the samples anymore, so you probably have to dig back to the previous episodes to see what the paper yarn looks like. And I don't know if I do this near the microphone, you might hear the paper-like friction sound. So that's what the yarn is. And it's also not, it's a little bit multicolored, like heathered. There's like a gray-green shades, and there is like a brick red color, so I do like the color. But this yarn is really hard to work with. It's not smooth, it's very frictional, but I really want the hat, I really want the end product. So I'm usually a process knitter, but for this item I am the, what's the opposite? The finished object knitter? I suddenly forgot the word, but I just want the finished object. And I think I probably just did the whole hat in 2 days. So I cast on and did the top part in the span of a week periodically, and then I spent just 1.5 days purely working on this and finished the rest of the hat. And my hand hurts a little bit, but it was okay. I didn't got injured because I think my crocheting, the motion is healthy. It just takes quite a lot of force to work with this yarn. So, but the end product working with this yarn is good. The hat retains its shape. So after the crocheting, it's kind of like it wiggles a bit. It's not flat. So I spray some water and then just flatten it with my hands like this. And now the hat looks quite perfectly. And I'll describe the pattern to you a little bit. I used a 3mm hook because that's the hook size that is recommended for my yarn, but you can use other like raffia or paper yarn that's good for a hat, and you can use a different gauge or crochet hook. So I'll just describe how I did it. So first I basically crochet this little flat circle, And you can find patterns for a flat circle probably everywhere. It's basically I cast on in a magic circle thing with 6 stitches, and in each new round I add 6 more stitches. And be careful that every round when you are adding new stitches, you need to stagger your increases. So your increases should not be along a radial line, otherwise you will be crocheting a hexagon instead of a circle. So I actually followed a pattern from this Japanese book. It's for crocheting bags, a raffia bag, and this is a really nice book. And I'll talk about it a bit later, but anyway, it includes a few different options for making the bottom of a bag, and one of the options is to crochet a circle, and like that. So I just followed the pattern for making this circle from this bag book, but I suppose you could find such a pattern from other places. And I just crochet the circle and increasing until I get a flat circle to sort of match my hat circumference. And then I just keep crocheting in the round without adding any stitches. But when I was adding a few crocheting a few more rounds, I realized that I probably did that too early, so I had to increase a bit more. So what you see here is this hat is not like perfectly vertical. Here it has a slight angle, and that's because I did an increase round somewhere here, and then an increase round here, and an increase round there. So when you are doing your hat, freestyling your own hats, you can do the increase rounds whenever you see fit. And whenever I say increasing round, it just means you add 6 stitches in this round. You distribute the 6 stitches evenly, and that's the increasing thing. And I also wanted to add a little bit of lace, and for this lace pattern I also went to my crocheting bag book. So in this book it also offers you 100 different patterns for the side of the bag, and I just picked one of the double crochet inspired pattern. Is this one, number 54? Yes, it's this one, the number 54. And this one, it has like many rows in this lace pattern, but for my hat I only took 1 row of this lace pattern and just put that into my hat. It's kind of like a cross stitch. I don't know the English word. It's kind of like cabling in knitting, but it's like cabling in crochet. So it's like a cabling in crochet of double crochet stitches. So that's sort of what it is. And it adds a nice character into the hat. So I did these lace patterns every I think I did this and then like 4 more single crochet rounds, and then 1 more of this lace pattern. You can put any lace pattern into your hat just as decorative, and you can also just do the whole thing in the single crochet stitches to have a simple looking hat. And then I just keep doing until here where I think my hat is tall enough and I'm ready to work the brim. But before that I also wanted to work the handle, and this thing I learned from another it's a Taiwanese book, and it's written in Chinese, in traditional Chinese, and I don't think it has an English translation. It's about crocheting straw hats basically, and I'll put a picture here. I'm not sure where you can get this in English knitting world, but anyway, the book teaches me a way to work this handle, and that's when I work the bottom rounds of the hat. I insert my crochet hook into like 4 or 6 rows above, and then I just do a very long, I don't know the English word. So you have double crochet stitches, you have triple crochet stitches, and then you probably have quadruple crochet stitches, and the 5 equivalent of this crochet stitches, or 6 equivalent of this crochet stitches. And you just for this one, I think I did the quadruple, so I inserted my crochet hook 6 rows above, and then I did the quadruple crochet stitches. That means I wrap the yarn around my crochet hook 4 times, and then just keep crocheting until I finish all the wraps around my crochet hook. If you're a crocheter, you probably know what I meant. If not, don't worry about it. You don't have to have the handle, so it's just a decoration. And that's what I did. And where you inserted your crochet hook depends on like how long you want your handle to be. I want mine to be like 6 units of height, meaning that like a single crochet stitch is 1 unit of height, and 1 double crochet stitch is 2 units of height. And I have a lace pattern here that equals to, the double crochet stitches is 3 units of height. So that's 3 units, and then 2 units here and 1 unit below. So together that's 6 units of height. You can do taller, and then you will do like the 5 version of the crochet stitch, or you can do lower, then you can do the treble crochet stitch. So it depends on the ribbon you want to insert. And then I work the brim. The brim is much like the top, which means you can just do the increase rounds every round, then you will have a very flat brim. But here I also added a few lace rolls without increasing or decreasing, so that will bring my brim of the hat to have like a slight angle like this instead of purely flat. And that's okay for me because I do want to have the shades. And then for the edge, I want it to be a little bit wavy, so I just did a bunch of increases. So here, in the place of 3 stitches, I just did 4 single crochet stitches. And then further one more round, in the place of 4 crochet stitches, I did 5 single crochet stitches. So that's pretty much the hat. And you can do any other patterns you like on your hat, basically. I enjoyed making this one. I enjoyed freestyling, and I can always like try on as I crochet, and if I need, I can always do an extra increase rounds or don't do an extra increase rounds, just so that the hat fits my hat circumference perfectly. And you can do that for your hat as well. And I also won the game of yarn chicken. You can see on the last rows on the side there are 2 crochet, 2 layers of single crochet here, but for these 4 stitches I ran out of the yarn, so there's only 1 layer of the single crochet stitches. That's because I ran out of yarn, but I think it's perfect. I always enjoy just using up all my yarn for a project whenever possible. No waste. So yeah, that's the hat. I spent quite a long time on this, so I'll move fast. And in the same style idea, I also did another summer crochet item, and that's a little phone bag, phone pouch. And I crocheted with a raffia type yarn. It's a Chinese yarn, and it's like this. But for a raffia yarn, I guess you can get this in the English knitting world as well. As I know, the wool and gown, they have a raffia, as I know, and it's a raffia yarn. And I quite enjoy working with this yarn, actually much better than the paper yarn I worked for the hat. This is quite smoother, and it kind of feels like plastic, but it's purely plant fiber. And the finished object is a bit softer. It actually feels kind of like leather. It has the elasticity in it compared to the paper yarn. So I don't know if it's perfect for making a straw hat where you want it to stay in shape, but for a bag it's okay if it's not that stiff. It's okay to have these softness. So yeah, so I just did this quick phone pouch thing, also following my bag book. And among these 5 bottoms, one of the bottoms that this book taught me is just like no bottom. Basically it's just a line, and then you just you cast on a chain, and then you just start crocheting in the round and form a little bag. And this lacy pattern also comes from the book. It is the number 44. So this pattern from the book, I just followed the book exactly and made this bag according to the measurements of my phone. And as you may see here, it has a belt that's not crocheted. I just crocheted 2 little handles, and then I put a sewing belt here because this phone bag is to match my first sewing garment project, and I'm gonna show you now. Voila! This is my first sewing garment project. It is a skirt, nothing fancy, very basic actually, but I love the fabric, I love the drape. I didn't do a perfect job. There are several things where I messed up and fixed partially, but I think it's pretty nice, and I've been enjoying wearing it. I'll put a few short videos of me modeling the skirt in the garden, and I'll talk about the pattern. So pattern is also from a Japanese pattern book, a sewing book this time. This is the Clean and Natural. And by the way, all these Japanese pattern books that I talk about can be found on Athena. I found there is a seller called Pomodoro 24 or something like that. I got this bag book from her, and then these are just the Chinese translation of the of Japanese pattern books, but you can find the original Japanese version on the Pomodoro Etsy store. And if you just search for Clean and Natural, or you go to her website and look at the sewing section, she has a huge amount of Japanese crafting books, including like multiple crafts. So I highly recommend you check out her store if you're interested in Japanese patterns, or if not, you can just watch me talking about those. And anyway, I followed this pattern book, and I did one of the skirt pattern. It is the simplest skirt you can hope for. It's just you cut 2 big pieces of the rectangle and you sew them at the edge out, and also it has this bow tie front, so you will make this little 2 little belt and tuck the belt inside, and then you did the waistband and gather the whole thing with an elastic, and then you have a skirt. I think I finished this thing within 1 week, probably within 3 days. And given how much a beginner I am in sewing, it is really quick. You just like sew and sew and sew, and then you have a finished object. You know, compared to knitting where you have to knit thousands and thousands of stitches, but this with the machine, it's just super quick. And I think I enjoyed my garment making experience, and I'm looking forward to sewing more stuff. And this thing makes me more comfortable in like pinning things together and just use the sewing machine. And but one thing with this pattern is that it doesn't have a pocket, and I really want a pocket, or otherwise I feel like there's no place to put my hands. And just for the first project, I'm not comfortable enough to modify that, although my colleague and friends in Wacko's Wools, she's a sewist, and she taught me how to add a pocket. But I think adding pockets will be my next project, sewing project. And for this one, that's why I decided to make this crocheted phone bag, so that I can put my phone in. And this is the matching pocket for this skirt, and I just used the leftover fabric to make this belt, so that they are a nice matching pair. And I don't know if any one of you also sew. Like for yarn, I like to use up all my yarn, but for fabric, it's very hard to do so, unless you probably need to learn quilting as well, which will be another adventure for me, and I'm not ready for that yet. And I've just been collecting my leftover pieces of the fabric, and I'll think about what to do with them. They could probably make good stuffing for animal toys if I cut them into really thin, small pieces. That's probably would be helpful. And if you have other suggestions on how to use up the leftover fabric, please let me know in the comments. And I always think no waste is the best. I don't want to waste anything. Yeah, so that's my sewing project. Really happy with it. And that's all the finished objects I have in the past 3-4 weeks. And then I'll talk about my work in progress, and these includes more knitting projects. So I'll start by talking about my knitting projects. So although this one is finished, it's not. It's a failure. So I'll show you. So this is my vine tank top or vine top. This is my new design. And in my last episode, I showed you my vine tee. So that is a summer t-shirt knitted with this vine pattern. And then I want to make a sleeveless version of, like, playing with the same idea, but making a sleeveless to make it like a camisole or a vest or just sleeveless top. And I'm using a Chinese yarn. It's this. I think I showed you, this is the Lotus linen yarn, and it's very thin, so I held 2 strands together and knit this on 3.5mm needles. But I totally messed up the roll gauge, and my design, you can see, it's like this. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So the yoke part is completely out of proportion. I think in knitting podcasts, I think probably like not many designers talk about their failure. They'll just like show you the finished objects, but since I'm a really new beginner designer, I'm not afraid of showing you my failure, and you can probably, I don't know, learn something or feel better about yourselves. That just don't be too stressful if things don't go your way. And anyway, my failure is because it's linen yarn, and it's the first time I work with it. And although I did my swatch, but I think I probably didn't do it big enough. This is a compact swatch where I've changed my needle size in the middle, and my roll gauge is 32 rounds per 10 centimeter. But after I did this one, it becomes 28 stitches per 10 centimeters, so it grows. I think one thing is because I was knitting in the round for this, and the other thing is because of the natural drape of linen yarn, when knitted in the bulk, when it's a bigger piece, it will like drape a bit more, and the stitches will just grow bigger, and it becomes different than the small piece of swatch that I did. So the gauge that I designed the thing with was wrong, and then also I didn't calculate my increase and decrease very carefully, so that the two big triangles are just like that instead of like that. So I'm happy with the bottom part of this thing, and the only thing that needs changing is the yoke part. I would need to change the size of the collar. And anyway, in order to improve my pattern, I actually applied my sewing skills. You can see all these sewing pins, and I've removed some. I just I've knitted some new pieces. So this is my yoke trial number 2, and obviously this got too short. But I'm happy with the shape, so I just need the shoulder strap to be a bit longer to here. And in order to try on this, I actually just pin this new piece on top of my old piece with the sewing pins, like that. I need to like pin this collar to the collar and just pin the location together so that I can try on myself and see if I like the new shape and think about what I need to improve. And also one more improvement I did was to adding an I-cord edging on both sides. The older version doesn't have the I-cord. The older version is just like a slip stitch, and I think it stretches and it doesn't show the vine lace pattern very well. But with I-cord edging, I think it stabilizes the whole thing, especially for the strap. It's very thin, and if it's just the lace pattern themselves, it will stretch significantly. But with the I-cord, it kind of binds the fabric so that it holds the fabric so that it doesn't stretches too much, even if it's linen and it likes to stretch, and it's also neater. So I enjoyed this version. But another thing I'm not happy with is how, like here, how I did the increases. It's not very neat because I increased right besides the lace pattern, and in the new version I added one more knit stitch besides the increases so that it looks a bit neater. So behold, let's look at the final version. I think I'm finally happy with this shape, and trying on myself it will look like this. And also I also changed how I did the increases here, so I think it's neater, it's more 3D, and it divides the stockinette section and the lace section very well. And also I like the I-cord edging. So now just pinning this to my failed design, something like that. This will be my final. I think this will be the final look of this design. And I just washed it, so the color is a bit different. But I wanted to wash and block it so that I can take the measurements correctly. And I think it is correct this time. And finally, I'll go from there. So that's my significant setback of my design progress. But I do like the design. I think it's nice. The whole design idea is just to have the vine coming from the shoulder strap and going from the collar and from the from the other side of the shoulder, and then the V-neck and the two strings of vines on the V-neck will meet together and then continue to the bottom, and the two edge of the vine will join with a new vine with the newly cast on underarm edges, and then you just keep knitting in the round. And on the bottom, just to echo my vine t-shirt design, I also did a small split hem because I think it looks quite neat. But I probably would so in my design, the front and the back are completely the same, but I think in the new version I probably want to increase the length of the back piece of the hem, just increase the length of the hem of the back piece, so that there's a little bit of the contrast. And I think I like it. I will like my final design. I think it will be the final iteration. I don't know if this is fun for you to hearing me chatting about my design progresses. And if everything goes well, I'll probably, I don't know if I'll just knit the whole thing again, or if I'll just knit the yoke part and graft the newly knit yoke part with the bottom part that I've already knitted on this one, because they will be exactly the same. I'm confident in grafting the stockinette portion, but with the lace portion, I'm not sure if I can do that perfectly. So I don't know if you have experiences grafting those complicated lace patterns, cheer me up and send me tutorials, and that might be helpful. Thank you. And okay, so that's my vine top design. Vine top, vine tank top, vine camisole. I haven't decided on the names. Which do you think would be the best? Vine top? Currently I'm dwelling on vine top, but what about vine camisole? Let me know what you think. Okay, no more vine top. And I'll show you my next whip. I showed last time I was working on my, it's entangled. I was working my Kuutar top. So this is the blocked piece. Kuutar top is a lace pattern camisole by Sari Nordland. This is the pattern. It's available on Ravelry. And I'm knitting this with the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. It is a new yarn we're having at Wet Coast Wools, and I'm just knitting a sample for our yarn store. And last time I've showed you the front piece, and now I've blocked it, and boy, it changes. It grows a little bit. One of you who have knitted this pattern kindly reached out to me and told me that this lace pattern grows a lot, and it tends to have this problem where it grows too much horizontally, that it's like too much wider than the shoulder, and it would just be ridiculous. But I think for this, for the silk yarn, it didn't grow too much. I'll show you a comparison. This is the back piece of lace that I'm still working on, that I haven't washed or blocked, and I'll just pin this together here. So there's like about an inch of difference horizontally, and vertically there's probably more, but the thing that would worry me a bit more would just be how much it would grow horizontally, and not much. But this is with the pure silk yarn. I think silk has a bit more elasticity compared to cotton and linen. So if you are working with linen and cotton yarn, just do be aware of how much stretchier they would be, especially with these kinds of lacy patterns. You probably would want to swatch the lace pattern, or just wash and block the yoke before you continue with your project, and I think that would be helpful. And that's how much I've been working on. The work that blocking did to the lace is really shocking. Just compare these. I still have like probably 6 more rows on the lace, and then I'll be joining the round and then finish the whole thing, hopefully. And that's the Kuutar. And one more thing, you've seen this probably since January this year. This is the Jules Genser. I was hoping to wear this on spring, but now this is already summer, so I'll probably finish it in fall. It is a top-down round yoke sweater with one single strand of mohair. Pattern is from 2202 Sandnes Garn magazine, and the original pattern looks like this. And that, it's very airy and looks really nice. And the yarn I'm using is a Chinese mohair, nylon mohair yarn. It's kind of like a translucent fabric after knitted, so you would definitely need to wear like a camisole or like a bra inside this. The original pattern uses the Tinsilk mohair, but the Chinese mohair I used is much thinner, a bit thinner, so the final fabric would look a bit differently, but I am happy how it looks. And I'm currently dwelling on the sleeve island. Finished one sleeve, almost done with the second sleeve, but I've had so many other projects that I'm working on, so this is now the priority, and this grows quite slowly. So hopefully I'll be able to show you the finished objects by my next episode. There it is. And I have one more sewing. I have one more sewing projects whip, and I have they are currently organized in this bag, so I will just not open the whole thing. You can see the fabric is the same as my sewing skirt, because I have like about 90 centimeters of leftovers, and I just think I could probably make something. And then from another Japanese sewing book, this is Kana's Standard. Again, I have the Chinese translation, but same contents. And this book is really good. I think this is my favorite sewing book so far. And it has a short sewing pattern, so I'm just gonna follow this one. And the thing I love about this pattern book is that it has like one base pattern, and then it modifies that into different lengths. Like for the trousers section, it just has this one base pattern, but depending on how long you cut this, you will have the longer pants, the shorts, the quarter length of trousers, and then you have like these overalls. So many adaptations. And it also have many skirts pattern, like a skirt pattern, and it also derived from one same skirt pattern, but change them into different lengths or using different fabrics, and with a inner lining or without the inner lining, and all her skirts have pockets. So I think the next skirt pattern I'll make will be coming from this book. She has pockets for all her patterns, so that's my favorite part. Yes, I remember. And look at this dress. I think eventually I want to make this dress, and it also has pockets. So pockets very important for sewing. And for the shorts, this one is a bit more complicated. I have to follow the paper pattern, so it's including all these paper pattern. This is a huge piece of paper. I have to lay it out in the big tabletop and then trace the paper draft. I bought craft paper and then put that on top of the given pattern, and then trace that down, and then pin my paper pattern onto my fabric, then cut my fabric. And that's all I have done. And the next step will just be sewing these pieces together according to the book. So we'll see. Whenever I have time, I could probably finish this rather fast, but I need to find the time given so many projects I have on hand. Yes, so I think that's all my whips to show you, and in next section I'll show you my new acquisitions, which are very exciting and heavy. So these are 3 magazines, Japanese knitting magazines, the Keitodama, and this is the Chinese translation of those, but you can find the original Japanese version in the Etsy shop that I've recommended. And these are I've talked about Keitodama in my show, I think many times, but these are actually the first groups of Keitodama books that I've actually owned, and have a story. So I have a test knitter, and a Chinese test knitter who lives in Richmond, so very close to Vancouver, and she's really good at knitting my patterns and like finding mistakes, and she knits very fast. Like, she did my Harbin sweater. I think we started working together since my Harbin sweater, and then she knitted my pine fur sweater, and then she knitted my vine tee. She basically test knitted all my sweater designs, and she averaged finishing them within probably 3 weeks or sometimes 2 weeks. It's really fast, and she has beautiful yarn choices. She did beautiful jobs, and she lives very close. And recently, she has so many yarn. She is a yarn hoarder, and she also has so many knitting books. And she found that she somehow had 2 copies of each of these Keitodama magazines. So she's really nice and gifted these books to me. And thank you, Kitty. And also, she visited the yarn store. She visited Wacko's Wools when giving these books to me, and she wore the sweaters that she test knitted for me, the pine fur and the vine top for her, vine tee for her daughter, and we took a photo together. I'll put it here. It was really nice. So it's a really nice in-person meeting with knitters who actually knitted my pattern, and I just feel so happy. Like, such a milestone for me as a newbie designer. So I've got the magazines. And Keitodama, if you don't know, is a Japanese quarterly knitting magazine. It's like the Lune magazine, but it's in Japanese. But I think it's, in my opinion, it's much better. But it's only my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. I'll show you what I have. These are some older issues, and the first one, the Chinese, it numbered differently. It's number 30, but in the Japanese, it is the 2019 summer issue. If you are looking for this in Japanese, it has 77 patterns. So in the back of each book, it will show you all the patterns it has. It mostly features knitting and crochet patterns, but it also has other crafts. I think in one of these books, it has the Tunisian crochet, and in one of these books, it has the weaving, and it also teaches you a little bit of machine knitting. So it has like a little column of machine knitting each time. So it's a very comprehensive, beautiful, interesting magazine. And I'll show you how it's structured. And so in like half of the magazine, it is like the modeling. So in this half of the magazine, it will show you the beautiful styling of the knitting patterns in this issue, and there's some information about the knitting community around the world. And in the bottom half, it's just in like plain black and white paper, and that's all the patterns. And of course, this will be in the Japanese schematics and symbols, that sort of format. And if you're interested in any of these patterns but are afraid of using Japanese patterns, but you really want to try, and you can look at my Japanese knitting mini lessons and tips. I have a few videos teaching you on that. And every issue, it has a theme, and for this issue, the 2019 summer, this is the wedding. It is wedding, and this is a crocheted dress, a whole dress, and this is actually detachable. So the top part and the skirt part is detachable, so that you can join the evening with this part and just do the ceremony in the whole part. And this issue also features a bunch of other crochet items. Oh, that's just another one. It's so beautiful. And this one, this crocheted dress is designed by Kaze Kobo. She's the designer. Oh, she's the designer who designed this this item as well from another book. And also, I've knitted my Farewell vest in, I think I've showed you that in my episode 11 or something. I'll put the link above there. And she's a master in Farewell, but also in crochet and in everything. She's a design master who designs beautiful things in multiple styles. And in the first page, in the first few pages, it will have world news, knitting world news. It will tell you the Vogue knitting in New York. It will tell you the Hong Kong knitting scene and Tokyo. And do you know who these are? It's Arnie and Carlos in Tokyo. And they had a knitting tour in Japan that year, so the magazine reported their tour and how they what events they had in Japan. So it's very interesting. And so that's the wedding dresses, and also crocheted tops in various styles. And look at this cute skirt for the babies on the wedding, and crocheted or knitted lacy suits for ladies in the lady guests, and also for older ladies, crocheted cardigans, bags, and there's some mending tutorial and some news about the Easy Girl yarn brand. So it really tells you the knitting, random knitting things happening around the world, and some knitting culture. This is, it has a world knitting tour teaching you the different, telling you about the different crafts. This is embroidery in Turkish? No, in Uruguay. So it's really interesting. And it also has another section about summer crochet, like these crocheted bags. And I'm only just showing you a few designs from the book, but there's much more. But we will run out of time. We'll probably spend 2 hours doing the whole thing. And this is macrame, a macrame earring. So it always enriches your knitting, your crafting horizons, and it also tells you about what yarn is available in Japan, and some lace, and there's the needle punching crafts as well. It includes the pattern as well, and in every issue there will be Hitomi Shida pattern. Hitomi Shida, if you don't know, is the lace pattern of Kuutar top. The lace pattern of Kuutar top is adapted from a Japanese knitting Bible stitch book. I've talked about the original pattern in my previous episode, and that the Japanese stitch Bible book is by the Japanese designer Hitomi Shida, and she is very famous for all the intricate lace pattern designs. And in each Keitodama issue, she had a column where she had one design of her garment in the full lace, and that's her style. Like usually just like full on intricate lace patterns of the whole garment. So I'm happy that Sari did a modification of her pattern that where it's not all full on lace, so it's a bit more approachable for intermediate knitters. And but if you love these full-on lace style, I highly recommend you check out Hitomi Shida's original designs. So that's this one, and I'll just show you some highlights of each of these books. So let's look at number 27. This is an autumn issue. This is the 2018 autumn issue. And the theme of this one is the beauty of round yoke. And that's a round yoke colorwork sweater designed by Kazakobo. And this is all the patterns in this book. Feel free to pause and take a look. And so round yoke, not only the colorwork. Oh, I love this one. It's so special. So it has a few like colorwork round yoke, like the traditional Fire Owl styles, but also the Aran style round yoke sweater, and that's like the same idea like my pine fur sweater. But also she has there is the crocheted round yoke. You don't necessarily have to do round yoke in knitting. There's crochet as well, and there's a little wool shoe pattern that I somehow quite like. It's not very useful, but I just like it. And then there's a section on coordinate items for couples. So it probably features some similar patterns, but one for a guy, one for a woman in stripes. So there's much more than that, but I want to show you more interesting things. And look at this little rabbit. So this is for the Mid-Autumn Festival, and in our East Asian countries, the white rabbit is a symbol for the Mid-Autumn Festival. Different countries celebrate the Mid-Autumn a bit differently, but the white rabbit is one thing. In Japan, the white rabbit would make these rice cakes like this, but in China we eat moon cakes, so slightly different traditions, features the same folklore tales, and the white rabbit is part of the folklore tales. Yes. So in each issue, there will be an amigurumi type of toy that is related with the festival of this season, and this book features the white rabbit. I'll show you the features in the other book as well. So there are much more beautiful things. The Hitomi Shida pattern in this issue is a thicker version because this is the autumn issue. Oh, and in the wedding issue, the amigurumi toy is, I think it's a rice dumpling or bamboo dumpling. It's this one. It's a summer traditional food for Chinese people. I think it's probably zongzi. And let's look at number 42. And this is more recent. This is last year, 2022 summer issue. And the theme is romantic lace. And as you already see, there's more lacy pattern designs in this issue. And I want to show you, so I'll just show you some highlights. So there's a lot of lace patterns. I love this. And there's also the granny square type of designs. And I really love how they style. So it's not just one item. The whole styling gives you some inspiration on how you can wear things and like what skirt I would want to make to match some of the other lacy designs that I've knitted. So it's really inspiration. It's a good inspiration. And there's, for the shawl lovers out there, it's a beautiful Shetland. Yeah, it's a beautiful Shetland lace shawl, also designed by Kobo, I think. Yes, it's designed by Kobo. Just see how versatile she is. She designs everything. And there's some summer vacation style. It's a summer vacation style, and I really love this little cardigan. It's also designed by Kobo, right? Oh no, it's designed by Okamoto Keiko. It's designed by Okamoto Keiko, a different designer, Japanese designer. Oh, look at the decorations for window curtains. Really nice, the lace ones. And the amigurumi design in this issue are these marine items. They have little sea star, the Nemo fish, and the mat with shells. It's really nice, and you can make a bouquet like this. And then there's also some simpler items. So in all these patterns, it has like a star rating from simple to more difficult, so that you can pick a pattern that's good for your level. And yeah, and every issue there is a little tip featuring this very funny Japanese guy. And in this issue, he teaches you how to combine your stashed yarn and put them together, and then recycle them and knit them into some, I think, a raglan sweater. So he teaches you how to sort them, and eventually, yes, here, that's the finished product that he knitted with his random stash yarn. That's quite nice. And in each issue, there is a Let's Knit in English section where actually they teaches the Japanese knitters how to read English patterns. So by doing an English and Japanese pattern side by side, which I suppose would be helpful for English pattern knitters as well, so that you can reverse engineer the whole thing. And the Hitomi Shira pattern of this book is this one, a more summer design. And also there's the machine knitting tutorial, but I'm not going to go to the machine knitting style because I'm not ready yet. I'm good with hand knitting for now. So that's the Keitodama books I have. I've ordered the newer issue, the 2023 issues, but they will arrive in a couple of months, and I will make sure to share with you the highlights of each Keitodama issue by then. So that's all the acquisitions, and I still have a little bit of random chats. So recently I've watched a Chinese drama show. It's called The Long Seasons, and boy, I love it so much. It's I don't think you'll be able to watch it, but I'm not sure if it's been translated. It's a local Chinese show, and the thing I love about it is it's set in my hometown region, so the northeastern part of China. It's about a crime scene that happened in 1998 that had some consequences that's rippled to 2016, so it has two timelines so that it shows the whole backgrounds of the two different times in that region in China. And the thing, so it's a very high quality drama show that's very rare for Chinese shows. And usually I watch like Netflix shows or HBO so that they have better quality, but I'm really happy to be able to watch a TV show that speaks my native language, and it actually speaks my dialect. It's the northeastern dialect. The actors, actresses, they're mostly from that region, so they speak very native local dialects that I just feel right at home, and it also tells a fascinating story. And the reason I want to share with you about this show is that it also features a lot of knitting scenes. So in the 1998 setup, there is a mother, and her whole thing is knitting. She was knitting a sweater so that she could make some extra money for her family, and it was a very difficult time in my region in China back then, so she had to do these things, and she knitted in the way that my grandma used to knit, that is with 4 very long double-pointed needles, and she could knit in the round for a sweater. I'll put some screenshots from the show right here, and there's also a few scenes where she was winding the yarn, and there was one scene where she put the skein on the top of her knees and she was winding the yarn, and then her son came, and then her son helped her to hold the skein of yarn, and she was winding. So it was like very familiar scene with me, and of course I acted like her son, and I held the yarn for my grandma when I was little, so it was it was very familiar, and very surprised to see this. And also the actress who played this mother, I'm sure she knows how to knit, and she also is from my hometown. She's from Harbin, the same city where I came from, and her acting is just to the point. It feels like she just is just a random auntie who came from Harbin, but she's probably Australian, Chinese Australian. Like, she plays roles in English in a lot of English shows, and she speaks English perfectly. She's been living in the English world for many years. I've seen her played in Don't Tell Her, the movie, and she played Aquafina's mother. But here in this Chinese show, and she just fits right in, and I'm sure she knows how to knit. Like, she used the English style, like the flicking kind of knitting style, which is the predominant style in my region. That's how my mother and my grandma knits, and like the way she did all the knitting motion, I'm sure it's very correct. And I don't know if she knitted the like work in progress sweaters in the show. Probably not. Probably there are like crafting staff in the show, but there are like multiple different sweaters, like work in progress sweaters, that appeared in the show, and I was quite happy and surprised to watch the show. It speaks to me, it speaks to my heart. Just want to share this experience with you. So that's everything I want to chat about in this episode. I hope you have enjoyed my little chats, and thank you for watching. If you haven't, please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, share with you what you think about my projects, my endeavors, or the books that I show you, and what other things you might be interested in learning more about in my channel. If you would like to support me, I'm on Ko-fi as Seedling Stitch. You could donate for one time or become a member and donate to me monthly, because I will be making these podcasts regularly, and also working on my design as well. And if you live in Vancouver or you're gonna visit Vancouver in one day, come to West Coast Wools, give us a visit. We have a very, very beautiful yarn store, and there might be one day where I just pop in the yarn store and do another episode. And I usually play a bit of piano in these episodes. I didn't have time to practice new ones since so many crafts, but I'll just put a footage of me playing Clair de Lune by Debussy from my previous episodes. And this song was also used in The Long Seasons, the Chinese drama show I was talking about, and it was used very beautifully. So I'll just leave that here again. And thank you. Hope you have enjoyed this episode, and happy knitting. Stay healthy, take care of yourself. See you next time. Bye.